Mizmor LeDavid. Adonai mi yagor b'ohalecha, mi yishkon b'har kodshecha, holech tamim ufoel tzedek, v'dover emet bilvavo, lo ragal al leshono, lo asa l're'ehu ra'a, v'cherpa lo nasa al krovo. Nivze be'einav nimas vet yirei Adonai yichabed, nishba lahara v'lo yamir kaspo, lo natan b'neshech v'shochad, al naki lo lakach, Ose ele lo yimot leolam. A Psalm of David. Do we deserve to enter God's sanctuary? Can we merit a place in the presence of God? We strive to live with integrity, to do what is right, to speak truth without deceit, have no slander upon your tongue, do no evil to others. Do not mistreat your neighbor, spurn a contemptible person, but honor those who revere Adonai. Never retract a promise once made, though it may bring you harm. Lend no money at unfair rates, accept no bribe against the innocent. Make these deeds your own, then you shall stand firm forever. The traditional greeting we offer between the holy days of any holiday during Chol HaMoed is Moadim L'Simcha, that these are appointed times of joy. And yet, today we try to grasp both our joy of the holiday of Sukkot and the intense feeling of loss. We don't suspend one without the other, but we manage to hold them both. In some ways, that's what it is to be a Jew, to continue taking steps forward, to continue celebrating, even though we have such a difficult history. This is why we go from the fast of Esther into Purim. This is why we go straight from Memorial Day in Israel to Yom HaAtzmaut. We read in the book of Psalms, Be'erev yalin bechi ve'laboker rina. We may go to bed weeping, but in the morning we somehow wake up joyful. Because of this unique place today between the holiday of Sukkot, there are a couple of customs that are a little bit different. You'll notice that our mourners are not wearing kriya ribbons. We traditionally tear an article of clothing or tear a ribbon to signify mourning. We don't do that, as our mourning won't really start due to the holiday until after the holiday of Simchat Torah. We'll talk about that later when we talk about Shiva dates. Our mourners are in a period called Aninut, where their private mourning rituals are private and the public ones don't quite yet begin. I'll say, because our tradition puts them in this interesting place, I want to remind all of our guests and loved ones who are here today that we still have an obligation during these days of Sukkot and Shmini Atzeret and Simchat Torah to shower our love and our support upon our mourners. The mourners of Bettie Wayner, namely her children Mark and Jean, Joyce and Chris, Jen and Ed, and grandchildren Molly, Amanda, Matt, and Allie.
The 23rd Psalm. Adonai roi lo echsar bin ot deshe yarbitzeni al mei menuchot yenaleni nafshi yeshovev yancheni v'magelet tzedek ינחני ומגלי צדק למען שמו. גם כי אלך בגץ על מוות, לא יירא רק כי אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני, שולחן נגד צוררי. דשנת שמן ראשי, כוסי רוויה. אך טוב החסד ירדפוני, כל ימי חיי, כל ימי חיי. ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. אדוני רואי לא אחסר, אדוני רואי לא אחסר.
A prayer for the caregivers. There are many pressures involved in living. Sometimes there are even greater pressures in dying. The responsibility of caregiving is all-consuming and exhausting. For the caregiver to crave relief is a longing as ancient as the book of Psalms itself. And so we read, Miksei ha'aretz elecha ekra, Ba'atof libi betzor yarum mimeni tenacheni. From the ends of the earth I call to you, within my heart is faint. You lead me to a rock that is high above me. Va'omar mi yiten li ever kayona, a'ufa ve'eshkona. Hine archik neder elyon b'midbar sela, achisha miflat li meruach sa'a misa'ar. I said, oh, that I had the wings of a dove, I would fly away and find rest. Lo, I would flee far off, I would lodge in the wilderness. I would soon find a refuge from the sweeping wind, from the tempest. The sweeping wind has blown its last. The tempest is no more. Now is a time for refuge and solace, for lodging in the wilderness. For those of us blessed with having witnessed the care that one human being can show another, we know that wilderness does not last forever. Pain and sorrow may challenge our faith, but the courage to persevere in the face of adversity is a miracle. As long as there is compassion in the human heart and the will to act on a virtue both human and divine, there's reason to believe. One of the customs during Chol HaMoed is to not offer a eulogy. So I'm not going to do that this morning, but if I were going to offer a eulogy, this is what it would say. It's customary to read the book of Kohelet, Ecclesiastes, during the Sukkot holiday. The words of Kohelet have challenged and perplexed Jews for as long as they've been written down. They've been quoted by lyricists and musicians, from Pete Seeger to the Dave Matthews Band. An excerpt from the book reads, "A season is set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven, a time for planting and a time for reaping, a time for keeping and a time for discarding, a time for loving and a time for hating, a time for embracing and a time for refraining, a time for slaying and a time for healing, a time for laughing and a time for weeping, a time for dancing and a time for wailing, a time for birthing and a time for dying, a time for speaking and a time for silence, a time for seeking and a time for losing." Were Kohelet to write about the life of Bettie Wayner, Bela Mato Bat Yona V'chana, I imagine it would go something like this. A season is set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven, a time for saving and a time for spending, a time for synagogue rummage sales and a time for Girl Scout cookies, a time for commas and a time for semicolons, a time for gardening and a time for playing bridge, a time for making kugel and a time for making grape jelly, a time for reading and some more time for reading, a time for traveling and a time for laying roots, a time for caring and a time of being cared for. Bettie Mae Wayner was born on June 15, 1920, here in Cleveland. She was raised during the Great Depression and was always grateful for the loving and adequate childhood her parents were able to give her and her younger brother Albert in spite of the times. Bettie and Albert were close until his passing. She was quite family-oriented and even traveled to California after high school to visit her mother's family there. She grew up in a culturally Jewish household, learned to read Hebrew, and grew to understand the Yiddish her parents spoke in the home. This was evidenced by a story of her offering a polki to a friend, not realizing that they might not know a drumstick by that name. In fact, not realizing that there could be any other name for it. Before World War II, Bettie was set up on a blind date by a girlfriend. I believe we'll hear that story a little bit later from Bettie's grandchildren. It was on this date she met her beloved Philip. After enlisting in the service, Bettie and Phil were separated for several years, but the two insisted that they wrote to each other daily. Philip came home from the army in June of 1945, and the two were married 4 months later. As crazy as this may seem to our modern sensibilities, it was the basis for 70 years of marriage. Bettie followed Phil to New York after their marriage so he could learn to become a watchmaker. It was around that time the two took on the surname Wayner. While there may have been other considerations as well, Bettie simply didn't want to be known as Mrs. Wayner. Shortly after, the pair made their way back to Cleveland. Mark was born in 1949, and the twins, Joyce and Janet, came almost 3 years later. Poor little Bettie carried those girls to full term. As her belly grew as wide as she was tall, her hands couldn't reach the faucet when she stood in front of the sink. She became so uncomfortable that she was forced to move in with her parents so she could be taken care of and ensure that Mark was taken care of as well. Once the kids grew past their infancy, Bettie took a job at the Montefiore home on Sunday mornings to help make ends meet. Phil, quote-unquote, watched the kids on Sundays, which meant that he dropped them off at their aunt's house where they could be fed and cared for. The kids didn't mind it, as it enabled them to build lasting relationships with their cousins. As time passed and the kids grew older, Bettie worked as an administrative assistant for the Jewish Federation in their women's division. She took the bus downtown to do so until her retirement in 1985. Though she had no higher education, Bettie was a smart woman. She was a grammar whiz, an extraordinary speller, The irony wasn't lost on me as I was typing this last night, and I misspelled extraordinary as she could juggle her numbers fairly well. She made sure that her family saved well, never had debt, and invested wisely. Not only did she make sure to get the best interest rates, she also knew which accounts to open in order to get the best rewards. Betty was active in all aspects of her children's lives. When Mark, Joyce, and Jan picked 3/4 of a bathtub full of Concord grapes and decided to wash them in the bathtub, Betty went to the library and taught herself how to make grape jelly so that the kids' work wasn't for naught. She took them to services in Hebrew school at Ner Tamid and even found time to coordinate rummage sale fundraisers for the sisterhood. In school, she was a PTA mother. In Girl Scouts, she was a cookie chairman. And in Boy Scouts, a den mother. It was a given that her 3 children would go to college. Somehow, Betty and Phil put 3 kids through college. This was no small feat. She was proud of the people they would grow up to be. A psychologist, a nurse, and a social worker. Each would grow up to be in the business of helping others. As her children grew older and began lives of their own, Betty welcomed their spouses, Jane, Chris, and Ed. Of course, Betty adored her grandchildren. She was all too eager to babysit Molly, Amanda, Matt, and Allie. They brought her immense pride and joy. Betty was resilient and had a healthy sense of humor. When an issue with her heart led to her losing the fingers on her right hand, she learned to do almost everything, even with her new handicap. She typed, sewed, and crocheted, though she had to give up her needle points. If she got frustrated, she was quick to offer up the pun, "Fingers were so handy." She loved to sing, and did so till the very end. In her later years, Betty discovered a love for traveling. The highlight of the trip she and Phil took had to be their trip to Israel in the early 90s. She loved gardening and growing vegetables and decided to take up bridge at the age of 85. Her weekly bridge game became a highlight of her week for nearly a decade. Betty lived independently well into her 90s, at which time her children showed immense love and devotion to her care and to that of their father. She left this world at the age of 96 years. The book of Kohelet also reads, God brings everything to pass precisely at its time. God also puts eternity in their mind. May we be grateful for all that Bettie Mae Wayner brought into this world, and for the 96 years she had to live. May she now experience eternity in the world to come. At the same time, may her soul be bound up with our own, so that she may know life through the lives that her loved ones live. May her memory be forever a blessing, and we say, Amen. I'd like to invite Matt and Allie to come on up and share a few words.
It all started with a blind date just before World War II. Whenever we would ask her about that night, she would always respond, I couldn't see a thing. Upon elaboration, it really was a blind date with a friend, but she didn't want to wear her glasses. When her mom came to tell her that our future grandfather had arrived, Grandma had to ask her what he looked like. Of course, she said he was good looking. It was perhaps a leap of faith to trust her mother's judgment, but they ended up having a great time despite her not being able to see any of the hockey game they were attending. They both stayed in touch by way of letters during the war, and when Pop came back, they were almost immediately married. It took her around 75 years to finally comment that it was a little crazy of her to marry someone she knew for less than a year and mostly through letters. Lucky for us, this relationship led to many great memories and a loving family.
Our earliest memories of Grandma were of staying at their house for sleepovers. She would always make us cabbage and meatballs for dinner, French toast and scrambled eggs for breakfast, macaroni and cheese for lunch, and a Neapolitan ice cream for dessert. She would feed us peas, a food that we were unfamiliar with, and we asked our mom if peas were actually kosher. since we didn't eat them at our house. And it just turned out that our mom didn't like peas. My favorite activity involving food was sitting on the floor by the food cart in the kitchen and peeling every onion that I could get my hand on. What was a chore for her actually turned into an added benefit of us staying over there. Aside from eating, we would spend time with her at the metro parks and on trips to the dollar store for coloring books. At bedtime, we would look forward to stories about her favorite made-up character, Lugendugen, the friendly lion, and to hearing her sing outside our room as we fell asleep.
When they were little, our cousins Molly and Amanda used to correspond with Grandma through letters. It's how they would keep in touch and feel close, even though they lived 4 hours away. Grandma always enjoyed receiving their letters, and Molly and Amanda looked forward to her responses. While recently going through old papers, Amanda found a letter from Grandma with a life-size drawing of a spider that she had found in the house. She wrote that it took all the courage she had to trap the spider until Pop came home to take care of the situation. Her fear of spiders was well known, and we used to get great joy when we were young by scaring her with our plastic insects. Until yesterday, we thought she was genuinely expressing fear over the fabricated situation, but our mom informed us that she was really just fulfilling her grandparent role of humoring her grandchildren.
During our childhoods and young adulthoods, Grandma always loved hearing about what was going on in her grandchildren's lives and about our successes. She was encouraging and supportive of our endeavors. Even as her memory faded, we never minded repeating answers to her questions because we knew she truly cared and that we were always on her mind. Even through the challenges of her dementia, it didn't affect her sense of humor and positive attitude. She would often laugh when we reminded her that we had just talked about that, or that someone has her purse and that it is safe. We also saw some positive aspects of her fading memory, such as the boost of confidence that came from being told how pretty and handsome we were multiple times a visit.
Grandma was always up for a good time and was eager to be at family gatherings, even as it got harder for her to travel. She attended our cousin Amanda's wedding 4 hours away at age 93, made a point to be at Passover Seders at the Satins up until the last year or two, and had a blast riding on an ATV at our family reunion just a few years ago. Her willingness to try new things and even go on a blind date are traits of hers that we will always admire. These memories and times we spent with her will always be special to us as we remember her long and fulfilling life.
Another consequence of the timing of Chol HaMoed, we don't traditionally recite the El Malei Rachamim prayer, but I'll invite us to please rise as the cantor chants these words of Eloah Slichot.
Eloach slichot, chanun v'rachum, erech apayim v'rav chesed, Hamtzei chaparat fesha b'hakaravat yesha u'menucha nechona. Tachat kanfei hashchina במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים לנשמת בלה מוטל בת יונה וחנה שהלכה לעולמה. אנא בעל הרחמים, זוכרה לה לטובה כל זכויותיך וצדקותיה בארצות החיים, ובטח לה שערי צדק ואורה, שערי חמלה וחנינה, בסתר כנפיך לעולמים. וצרור בצרור החיים נשמתה, אדוני הוא נחלתה, ותנוח בשלום, בשלום, על משכבה, ונאמר אמן.
Eloha Slichot, God of forgiveness, you who are gracious and compassionate, patient and abundantly kind, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Baila Matel Bat Yona Vechana, who has gone to her eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that you remember all the worthy and righteous deeds she performed. May our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul be bound up in the bond of life. May she rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. You may be seated. Once again, because of this unique holiday situation, Shiva will not begin until after Simchat Torah. Shiva Minyanim will be on October 26th, 27th, and then on Saturday evening, October 29th, from 7 to 9 p.m., with Minyan at 7:30 at the home of Janet and Ed Nitel. That's 2402 Allen Boulevard. Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu, our God and God of our ancestors, 1,000 years in your sight are as a passing day, an hour of night. The generations come and go while you endure forever. We're always in your hand, Adonai, in death as in life. Help us who will mourn the loss of Bettie Wayner to look beyond this moment, to realize that death cannot destroy the bonds of your everlasting love. Sustain us with the knowledge afforded by faith that you will not allow us to suffer oblivion. For you, Eternal One, have taught us the way of life. Through you we gain eternity. And let us say, Amen. Invite us all to please rise. We invite our pallbearers to approach the front of the room.